Welcome back to College Football Fanatic. We are back. College football is back. We're going to dive on into week one. As I'm recording this, week one is not yet totally complete, but the games that I'm going to talk about are over, and we're going to go over Ohio State, Texas, Florida State, Alabama. What a game that was. Michigan, New Mexico, and then LSU, Clemson. So let's just dive on in without any further delay, and let's start with Ohio State, Texas. And look, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about this game because I'm an Ohio State fan, so deal with it. I want to start off by talking about Arch Manning. Clearly, he wasn't comfortable in this game, and I kind of got that sense in the offseason because he had so much offseason hype, and honestly, he's handled all of this really well, but in the game today against Ohio State, he was clearly shook. Matt Patricia, hats off to him, did a great job with his scheme and making things uncomfortable for Arch Manning. I think Arch has a chance to be really good down the line here, but it's a very tall order for a guy like him. I know he's a third-year quarterback, but making his first true start as the guy, as QB1, going on the road, in the shoe, hostile environment, defending national champs, it was just too much to ask. And the way that game was going, he was going to have to go out there and win the game for Texas, and that just wasn't going to happen. I will say he didn't look as sharp and or as polished as I was thinking he might look. He did settle in a little bit and had some nice balls down the stretch, including that touchdown pass, but just wasn't quite the guy. And I had a feeling that this might be the case, but again, we got to give a lot of credit to Ohio State's defense. I thought Matt Patricia did a great job with the scheme and how he used Caleb Downs and those linebackers. Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, these are some of the best, most athletic linebackers that Ohio State has had in a very long time, or maybe even ever had, because they're just a different breed of linebackers. These guys are just missiles, especially Arvell Reese. He's on his way to being an All-American this year, so I think that's kind of crazy. But I just think what Matt Patricia did was really impressive with his scheme and getting these guys ready to play week one. Clearly, with this Ohio State defense, the centerpiece, the focus is Caleb Downs and the linebackers. And that's what makes total sense to me. Looking at Ohio State's defensive line, that didn't look great, but that makes sense considering they lost every starter from the D-line last year that went on to the next level of the NFL. So they just weren't quite getting that pressure and that same production that they got last year. But if you can utilize Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, these linebackers in a blitz package coming off the edge, then you can kind of help supplement that production in a way. And you saw that on display today against Texas. So hats off to Matt Patricia for getting his defense ready to play, because they won the game, right? Holding Texas's offense to, what was it, 1 of 4 on 4th down. Very impressive. And then having another goal line stand. Can't believe they did that again, but all around, very impressive day from Ohio State's defense. Texas's offense, Arch Manning just not quite there, not quite ready to play yet. But Ohio State's defense was the key to the win today for the Buckeyes. Now, if we flip it to the other side of the ball, Texas' defense, they have some guys. And I will say I was scared out of my mind for Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill. Now, they didn't have much of an impact, but Ohio State was calling the game in kind of a passive way, in a conservative way. They didn't want to give them the chance to have an impact and take over this game. So just running the ball up the middle, even though that drives me nuts, especially when it's not working, they're trying to pound the ground game, keep the clock moving, especially once they built that lead. So I get it, but it still drives me crazy sometimes when they do that. But Texas, they have a real defense. That front is no joke. We talked about Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, that secondary. That's a really good defense, and they played their hats off. I mean, they looked really good. Julian Sayin, I thought, had a pretty good day. He's clearly the guy. He was accurate. He was confident. He was decisive. He didn't have great numbers if you look at his box score, but he was doing exactly what you wanted him to do, more or less. No turnovers, no turnover-worthy throws that I can remember at least. Took care of the ball, looked comfortable. Just all around, great day from Julian Sayin. We didn't need Julian Sayin to go out and win the game. It's just utilize the players around you, be a point guard, be smart, and that's exactly what he did. So that was very positive to see. Jeremiah Smith didn't have a huge impact. Credit again to Texas for taking him out of the game a little bit. He did have a few catches, so it's not like he was a no-show, but he did also have those 2 very uncharacteristic drops. But again, this was just like a game where both teams kind of had nerves, and I think both sides were overthinking it a little bit from the player perspective. But it's a big game, right? It's a 1v3 matchup, monster matchup. big brands, Texas, Ohio State. So it's no surprise that there's a little bit of rust for week one, and also considering how big of a matchup it is, there were going to be some drops and some mental errors. I'll say this about Texas, Ohio State, then we'll move on to Florida State, Alabama. As an Ohio State fan, I definitely don't want to play Texas again. I mean, considering how last year's game went in the CFP and then how this year's game went just now today, they scare me. I think Arch Manning's only going to get better. That defense is real. That defensive front scares me. Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill. I keep mentioning those guys, but they have real dudes over there. That's a very good team. So it's very possible you meet them again in the playoff. I hope that doesn't happen. I think Texas is going to be fine. This was just a matchup of two really good teams, and Texas caught Ohio State on the road, and Ohio State's defense came ready to play, and the offense did just enough to help get them the win. Let's go to Florida State, Alabama. I will be honest, I did not see this coming. Alabama being just completely pedestrian, just being average Alabama was not on my bingo card. Not that I had blind faith in Kalen DeBoer to get everything fixed and bring them back up to the gold standard of Alabama football. I wasn't thinking that, but I don't know. I definitely thought Alabama would win, so let's just get that out of the way right now. I was totally wrong about that. Florida State was everything I thought Alabama would be, and Florida State was everything that Alabama used to be. So the discipline, the violence, the way they were hitting, the speed, just everything that Alabama used to be, Alabama wasn't today, and Florida State was that. Alabama had 8 penalties, not disciplined. Florida State clearly was flying around the football. They were fast. They were violent. They were more violent and physical than Alabama. That's weird. That's just weird to see, right? And I know last year wasn't great for Bama, but it was still kind of like, okay, let's just, first year Kalen DeBoer, let's kind of feel it out and see how this goes. This is a week, I don't want to overreact to week one, but this is a train wreck right now for Bama. I don't know how you feel if you're a Bama fan. You sure don't feel good. On paper, I think Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. He's won everywhere he's been, but clearly it's not working right now at Bama, and they got to get these things fixed. And I don't know if it's a culture issue. Like, I don't want to say the word soft because that's being thrown around a lot these days in college football. But Bama they don't have it right now. And that's going to be a major problem for them. And I just don't really know how you get that fixed. Florida State, Mike Norvell, you got to tip the hat to Mike. He did a great job pulling his program and his team just out of the mud. I mean, they were just shit on constantly last year, and rightfully so, because they won 2 games after winning, 13 games or whatever it was the year before. So Mike deserves a ton of credit for getting his program turned around, getting his guys ready to play. Did not see this coming from Florida State, but last point here on Florida State. As a college football fan, I've always felt that Florida State's one of those premier programs. You can call them a blue blood, whatever. I don't know. I don't really care about, I'm not going to get caught up in those technical definitions of that. But Florida State, this is a football school, football program, historically good. College football is better when Florida State's good. I'm not saying that Florida State is back. I'm not saying that Florida State is great. They're going to lose some games. They're not perfect. They have things to iron out. But when the crowd is involved in that environment and just the war chant, when the crowd at Florida State gets into it, I just get that home atmosphere feels great. And with Florida State, the Tomahawk War chant, when the crowd gets behind them, it just feels like a whole different level, I've always felt. And so when Florida State has that, and they had that today against Alabama, and they're good and they're winning games and they're beating top 10 teams like they did today, I just feel like it's good for the sport overall. Let's go to Michigan versus New Mexico. And I'm touching on this game because as an Ohio State fan, I'm always keeping tabs on Michigan, and I need to see how Bryce Underwood looks. Now, I don't know if I can say this next part as an Ohio State fan. I am kind of excited to watch Bryce Underwood play. That's the college football fan in me. Of course, as an Ohio State fan, I'm terrified of him because I think he's going to be very, very good. This guy has all the tools. He looks the part. He has composure. He has leadership. He had his, at points where he looked like a true freshman. But for the most part, my God, I know it's just New Mexico, but the way he carries himself, the composure that he has the size, he has the arm strength, he has the velocity on his throws, he's on time. This guy is going to be really good. As the college football fan, I'm excited to watch him grow and develop, and I think he's going to be one of those guys where as he gains experience throughout the season, by the end of the regular season, he might be closer to a sophomore than he is a true freshman, because you just go through 10, 11, 12 games of experience and you just get so much better over the course of a year. And again, that concerns me, that terrifies me as an Ohio State fan, because you're going to be rolling into Ann Arbor maybe during the time when Bryce Underwood's hitting his stride. I know that's only week 1 and I'm making a lot of assumptions, but this is a guy I've always been very high on coming out of high school, and seeing him win this starting job, which it was only a matter of time before he was going to be QB1 at some point, whether or not it was week 1 or week 2, week 3, week 4, that kind of thing. And he's going to get a ton of reps here. I know they got Oklahoma next week. We'll see how that goes on the road. That'll be a really good test for him, and we can kind of get a better gauge to see where his skill level really is at. But he is going to be a lot of fun to watch. As an Ohio State fan, it's concerning, but as a college football fan, it's going to be fun. Then last game I'm going to touch upon, let's talk LSU Clemson. Not a big Dabo Swinney or Brian Kelly guy these days, but I felt that Clemson has been on this upward trajectory even going back to last year. I've been a big fan of Cade Klubnik. In the offseason, I was kind of giving him some Heisman hype. I still feel that way. I think he's going to have a great year. He can still win the Heisman. One loss is not a big deal, especially to LSU. But I think I underrated LSU a little bit. And I did see some of the offseason hype for LSU. Some people are saying, hey, they could be a sleeper team to win the SEC. And I just wasn't quite sold on it, because I haven't been a Brian Kelly guy. Even going back to his time at Notre Dame, I mean, they weren't winning BCS bowl games. They weren't winning New Year's Six bowl games. They weren't winning CFP games. And then he gets to LSU, and it's like, okay, they're probably going to be like a 9-10 win team, maybe win a bowl game, but they're not going to be a serious threat to either make the playoff, or if they do make the playoff, to go on a run. Like, they're just kind of in that gray area, that gray zone. And part of that is they just don't get off in the win column when the season starts. And that's hard when each year with LSU and Brian Kelly, you start off with a loss and a loss and a loss, and you're just fighting this uphill battle for the rest of the season. Now, it is more flexible now, because with the 12-team playoff, you can afford to lose. But still, if you do lose, now your margin of error has shrunk a little bit. The good news for LSU is that they finally win. They get that season opening win over Clemson. They went on the road to do it. It was very impressive. Garrett Nussmeier looked pretty good. Took a lot of things that were in front of him. I don't think he had an interception. I could be wrong, but he took care of the football, which was good. And defensively for LSU, they got some guys. They got some DBs. They're flying around the football. Harold Perkins still got that closing speed, and he put that on display that last 4th down to steal that game when Cade Klubnik rolled out of the pocket and just put that speed on full display. When you have a guy like Harold Perkins, I know that's his thing. He gets after the quarterback. But when you have a guy that can do that, it just changes the way you can utilize your defense, and you can really get after a quarterback, especially a guy that's mobile or can be mobile, make throws on the run, like Cade Klubnik. Speaking of Cade, didn't have a great game. I thought that he was forcing a lot of throws, trying to make plays. I don't know. It didn't feel like a bad game. I know the box score didn't look great, and obviously they didn't win, but I don't know. I feel like him forcing these throws and trying to make big plays is also a product of LSU's defense, making him uncomfortable. The pockets closing, collapsing, forcing him out of the pocket, making throws on the run. He did make some throws. He made some plays, but wasn't quite as comfortable. I don't think he was quite as comfortable as he was hoping he would be. And again, a lot of credit to LSU's defense for getting after him a little bit.